You come home at 10:14 p.m., wet shoes. Keys still in your hand. The kitchen light is already on, the way you left it, the way you always leave it. Nothing unusual, except the table. There is a ring on the surface. A faint circle, left by the bottom of a teacup, the kind that takes hours to form. You remember it this morning. You remember what was sitting next to it. The envelope is gone. You set your keys down slowly. You do not move toward the table. You stand in the doorway, and you think carefully about who has a key to this apartment. The answer is two people. One of them is you. Someone came in, someone took it, or you imagined the whole thing, and that is exactly what they would want you to start wondering. This is how it begins. Not with a dramatic confrontation, not with a threat. With a question planted inside your own memory, quiet enough that you cannot tell if it belongs to you or to someone else. What was in that envelope is not the point. The point is what you did when you first saw it this morning. You picked it up, you read it, you put it back down, and you went to work without telling anyone. That decision, that small, ordinary, unremarkable decision, is the only thing that matters, because somewhere inside a building with no public address, a file with your name on it was updated this morning, and the file says he did not tell anyone. That is the beginning. 3 weeks later, you are sitting in a room with no windows. The chair is metal. The table is metal. The man across from you has a notepad he has not opened. There is a recording device in the center of the table and nobody has mentioned it. You have been here for 40 minutes. You have answered 23 questions. None of them were about intelligence work. They asked about your father, about a fight you had in secondary school in 2007, about the last time you cried and what caused it, about whether you consider yourself a patient person. You answer carefully. You answer honestly. You do not yet understand that the answers themselves are almost irrelevant. What they are measuring is something underneath the answers. The pause before you speak, the direction your eyes move, whether your breathing changes when the questions get personal. You are not being interviewed, you are being read. The GRU does not recruit the most talented. Talent is common. What they are looking for is a specific architecture of personality, someone who can hold contradictory instructions without needing them reconciled, someone who can operate in ambiguity without reaching for certainty, someone who, when handed a task they do not fully understand, simply begins. The first lesson they teach you is not a technique, it is a reorientation. You are told that language is not communication. Language is access. The distinction sounds academic until the third month, when you are placed in a room with a native English speaker and asked to have a conversation about nothing in particular. Afterward, your instructor does not ask what you talked about. He asks what the other person revealed without meaning to. You start to understand. They are not building your skills, they are dismantling your instincts and replacing them with different ones. Cleaner ones, more useful ones. By the end of the first year, you sleep well, you eat well, you follow instructions without friction. Nobody tells you that is the first sign it is working. Your first field assignment looks straightforward on paper. A reconnaissance exercise near the western border. 3 days, a small unit, standard observation protocol, you are given coordinates, a reporting window, and a set of objectives that fit on half a page. You have done simulations of this exact scenario 14 times. On the second night, you establish your observation post and begin recording movement patterns along the target corridor. At 0300, you notice a discrepancy. The bridge marked on your map as a secondary crossing does not exist. The coordinates place it 400 meters north of its actual position. Not close, not a rounding error. You report the discrepancy through the correct channel. You provide the accurate coordinates. You attach a note explaining the map error. Your section commander calls you back within the hour. His voice is flat. He tells you to submit your report using the original coordinates. You ask why. He does not answer the question. He repeats the instruction. You stay silent for 4 seconds. Then you confirm receipt and close the channel. This was not a reconnaissance mission, not entirely. It was a test dressed as one, and the question being tested had nothing to do with map reading. The question was this: when the institution hands you something that contradicts what your eyes tell you, which one do you trust? You used the original coordinates in your final report. You told yourself it was a practical decision. The exercise would be over in 18 hours. The discrepancy had no operational consequence. There was nothing to be gained from pushing back. All of that was true. None of it was the real reason. The real reason was simpler. You understood, standing in the dark at 0300 with mud on your boots and a radio in your hand, that the GRU does not reward officers who are right at the wrong moment. It rewards officers who understand when being right is a liability. That knowledge settled into you quietly. No drama, no internal conflict you could point to later. Just a decision, just coordinates on a form, just the first time you chose the institution over the ground, truth beneath your feet. There will be others. At the next level, they will not feel like choices at all. Week 6 of Spetsnaz selection, they hand you a single sheet of paper, no letterhead, no date, no title at the top, 3 short paragraphs in dense administrative language, describing what happens in the event of capture, compromised, or death in a denied operational area. The instructor standing by the door says, sign at the bottom if you understand. You read it once. You sign. You will think about that document later, in a different country, under a different name, and you will realize you cannot remember exactly what it said. You remember the texture of the paper. You remember the pen was blue. You do not remember the words. Nobody read it carefully. That was the point. The training itself is not what the mythology suggests. It is not primarily about physical endurance, though the physical demands are real, and they are sustained, and they are designed to locate the exact threshold where a competent man starts making bad decisions. It is about something more specific. They want to know what you do when you are exhausted, isolated, and the correct action is also the costly one. You jump, you dive, you demolish. You spend 72 hours in a forested area in winter with a radio that may or may not be functional and instructions that were deliberately incomplete. You complete the objective. In the spring of a year that will not appear in your service record, your unit deploys to a region where the uniforms have no insignia and the vehicles have no plates. This is not unusual. This is doctrine. Deniability is not an afterthought in Russian military intelligence. It is a design principle built into the structure of every operation at this level. 11 days into the deployment, 4 men from your unit do not come back from a night operation. There are no funerals. There are no notifications. There are administrative adjustments made in Moscow by people who will never visit the location where those men were last seen. You are not given time to process this. The mission continues. What you notice 3 weeks later when you are back inside Russia and sleeping in an actual bed is that you are not as affected as you expected to be. You file that observation away. You do not examine it further. That is the moment the institution finishes its work on you, not the signing, not the deployment. That quiet moment of not examining further. The file on your desk has your photograph in the top right corner, not an old photograph. This one was taken 6 weeks ago outside a restaurant in the Arbat district on a Tuesday evening when you were not working. You are looking slightly to the left. You appear relaxed. You did not know anyone was there. This is a routine internal assessment. Every GRU officer at your level receives one every 18 months. The file documents your movements, your associations, your financial activity, your communication patterns, and any behavioral changes that might indicate outside contact, personal instability, or ideological drift. You read through it carefully. It is largely accurate. There are 2 minor errors and 1 omission you decide not to flag. You close the file and return to your primary work. This is Cap Joe 4. This is what people outside the institution imagine when they think of intelligence work, and they are not entirely wrong. But they are wrong about almost everything except the surface. Yes, there are postings abroad. Yes, there are embassy receptions and defense conferences and conversations with foreign military officers over bad wine. Yes, you collect information from people who do not know they are providing it, but the majority of your work looks like this. Screens, secure terminals, reports that arrive classified and leave more classified, collection requirements generated in Moscow for officers in the field whose faces you will never see. You read intercepts, you assess source reliability, you write recommendations that travel upward through a chain where each level adds a layer of institutional confidence to the original uncertainty. A field report comes in from a source in Warsaw. The information is credible but narrow. You assess it as low confidence, potentially significant. By the time your assessment reaches the 3rd floor, it has become moderate confidence, a significant. You did not change those words. Someone above you did. You note it. You do not raise it. Intelligence services do not discover reality and deliver it cleanly upward. They negotiate with each floor of the building over which version of reality is acceptable. You understand this now, not as corruption, but as physics. The system has its own gravity, and information bends inside it the same way light bends near mass. You are good at this work. That is not entirely a comfort. The next level will show you why. Vienna, March. A bathroom in a mid-range hotel near the Westbahnhof. You are standing in front of the mirror at 7:22 in the morning. The passport on the shelf beside the sink says Martin Hofer. Born Graz, 1981. Logistics consultant. You have been Martin Hofer for 14 months. You have answered to that name in 4 countries, across 31 separate interactions with individuals who believe they were speaking to a private sector professional with no particular agenda. For 4 seconds, looking at the mirror, you cannot locate your own name. Not a breakdown, not a crisis. 4 seconds of genuine operational blankness, the kind that comes not from confusion, but from efficiency. Your brain has filed the original so deeply, accessed it so rarely, that retrieval takes a moment longer than it should. The 4 seconds pass. You remember. You pick up the passport and place it in your jacket pocket. You do not mention this to anyone. This is the level almost no one reaches, and the ones who do are not selected for courage or ideology. They are selected for a specific psychological profile, the ability to maintain parallel identities without the friction of conscience slowing down the switching. You are not playing a role. That framing is for films. What you are doing is more precise. You are operating a secondary self that is complete enough to pass examination, and you are doing it while the primary self watches from somewhere quiet and keeps notes. The operations at this level exist in the space between official denials, a dead drop in Prague, surveillance support for a team tracking a former officer in a British city whose name appears in no briefing you will ever see officially, coordination with intermediaries who know you only as a voice on an encrypted line. In 2018, 2 officers from a unit adjacent to yours are photographed on international television. Their cover names, their real names, their travel history, their unit affiliation, all of it, public. You are not them. Your operation that quarter runs without incident. That is not relief you feel. It is something colder. A professional assessment. Their preparation was inadequate. Yours was not. The difference between exposure and invisibility at this level is not luck. It is the quality of the work done 18 months before the operation begins. You tell lies for a living. That stopped being uncomfortable around month 4. What is uncomfortable, standing in that Vienna bathroom in March, is the realization that the discomfort itself has gone. And you cannot tell anymore whether that makes you better at the work or simply further from the person who first opened an envelope on a kitchen table. You dry your hands. You go to the meeting. The meeting room has no windows, no clock, and no phones. Not because phones are prohibited, because nobody at this level brings a phone into a room like this. That understanding arrived without anyone stating it, the way most things at this level arrive, through observation, through watching what the people above you do not do. There are 6 people at the table. A map of a specific region covers most of the wall to your left. Every colored marker on that map represents a decision that will be executed by people who are not in this room. Some of those people will not come back. The markers do not indicate that. The markers indicate objectives. A general at the head of the table asks you to assess the probability of mission success. You have the actual numbers in front of you. The real assessment, built from source reporting, signals intercepts, and 3 separate analytical reviews. The honest number is somewhere between 31 and 38%. That is not a failure of planning. That is the nature of the operating environment. You say 65%, not because you are ordered to, because you have sat in enough rooms like this one to understand the precise consequences of each number you might say. 38% ends the conversation badly. It raises questions about the quality of your preparation. It introduces doubt into a room where doubt is expensive and travels upward in ways that attach themselves to names. 65% moves the meeting forward. The Russian military does not punish failure. It punishes surprise. An officer who predicts failure and is correct survives. An officer who predicts success and delivers failure disappears from rooms like this one, and eventually from buildings like this one, and eventually from the kind of record anyone can access. You learned this watching someone else make the wrong calculation 3 years ago. His name no longer appears in documents you handle. The meeting ends. The operation is approved. You gather your materials and walk back through a corridor where the lighting has always been slightly too dim and nobody has ever mentioned it. You are not troubled by the number you gave. That is the most important sentence in this section. You are not troubled. Your car has armored glass now. The driver does not speak unless you speak first. Your office has a second door that does not appear on the building schematic. A physician visits the compound twice a month and keeps no formal records of the consultations. Your meals are prepared in a kitchen that serves 11 people total, and the staff have been cleared at a level that required 18 months of background review. None of this is a reward. This is the institution protecting an asset it has invested in, and the asset is you. The distinction matters. In your 20s, you feared ambush. In your 30s, you feared exposure. In your 50s, you fear something that has no clean name. Miscalculation. Not your own, other people's. Reports that arrive shaped by the expectations of the people who compiled them. Assessments that have been sanded smooth by each layer they pass through. Operational forecasts that promise effects the operational branches already know they cannot fully deliver. In February of a recent year, you read a strategic assessment predicting that organized resistance in a neighboring country would collapse within 72 hours of the initiation of hostilities. You know the number is wrong. You have seen the underlying data. You have read the signals reporting. You understand the political composition of the target country in a way the assessment authors do not. The real estimate, built from sources you personally vetted, is something closer to months, possibly longer, possibly much longer. The assessment has already been signed by 7 people before it reaches your desk. Each signature has added a small increment of institutional certainty to the original analysis. By the time it reaches you, it no longer reads like a forecast. It reads like a fact. You sign it, not because you believe the number, because removing your signature does not remove the assessment. It only removes you from the room where the next assessment will be written. Wars can begin from a single document. You signed it. You go home that night. You eat dinner. You sleep 6 hours. In the morning, you're back at your desk reviewing the next folder and the folder after that and the one after that. There's no mechanism inside the institution for regret. You do not provide your own. The office is quiet. That is the first thing anyone notices. Thick carpet, secure lines arranged at precise angles. An assistant in the outer room who speaks in a register just below normal conversation. Folders delivered by hand, never electronically, never by anyone below a specific clearance level. The violence is elsewhere, downstream from this room, in places that do not appear on the maps pinned to your walls. You read assessments before sunrise. NATO posture, Ukrainian mobilization rates. Satellite imagery of storage depots in countries whose governments publicly pretend those depots do not contain what they contain. Cyber operations, agent networks, strategic warnings about events that have not yet happened and may never happen unless someone in a room like this decides they should. Your job is to decide which fragments of this matter. Men will die based on that judgment. You turn the page. On a morning in the autumn of your final year in the role, a folder arrives that contains a personnel assessment, standard format, familiar structure. You read 3 pages before you understand what you are looking at. The assessment is about you, written by your likely successor. Documenting your movements over the past 16 months, your decision patterns, your associations, the small inconsistencies that have begun appearing in your schedule. It is thorough, it is accurate, it is respectful in the way internal documents are respectful, which is to say clinical. You read it to the end, you close it, you place it in the appropriate drawer. You do not feel surprise, you do not feel betrayal. You have written assessments like this about predecessors of your own. The system does not stop because you reach the top of it. There is no top. There is only the position currently occupied, and the file being prepared for the position currently occupied. And then somewhere beneath all of this, you remember the envelope, not the envelope itself, the kitchen table. The ring left by the teacup. The decision 30-some years ago to board a train at 0640 without telling anyone. You were not recruited in that moment. That is what you understand now. Recruitment happened later at the academy, in the field, in the rooms without clocks. That morning at the kitchen table, what happened was simpler. You consented before any document was signed, before any oath was taken. You consented in the particular silence of a man who knows where a thing leads and chooses to walk toward it anyway. That is the job. Somewhere tonight, a young man comes home at 10:14 p.m. wet shoes, keys in his hand, the kitchen light on the table, a faint ring left by a teacup, and next to it an envelope with his name typed in block letters on cheap white paper. He picks it up. He reads it. He puts it back down. He does not tell anyone. He thinks he is being offered something. He is not wrong about that. He is also not thinking about it clearly. What he is being offered is not a career or an identity or a place inside an institution. What he is being offered is a sequence of small decisions, each one reasonable in isolation, each one consistent with the one before it, none of them individually large enough to register as the moment everything changed. That is the design. The GRU does not break people. It does not need to. The institution selects for a specific willingness that is already present and then provides the circumstances under which that willingness becomes character. The rest is administrative. The rest is just time. 30 years from now, if the sequence runs its course, that young man will sit in a quiet office before sunrise and read assessments that decide which foreign city feels pressure next. He will not remember the envelope clearly. He will remember the ring left by the teacup. He will remember that it did not occur to him to ask questions. That absence of questions is the whole thing. At the bottom of the institution, danger is physical. At the top, it is historical. Entire wars fit inside a briefing folder. Entire lies fit inside a sentence. Somewhere between those two facts, a career ends and the file is closed, and a new file is open for the next person already boarding a train at 0640 without telling anyone. If you stayed through all of that, the next one is already in preparation. Subscribe or do not. The file updates either way.